Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines where my guest is Trygve Olson. He's a registered nurse with Carperter's House, part of the St. Joseph's Hospice facilities here in Baton Rouge. Trig is going to talk to us about the types of care you can receive. Care in your home, care in an inpatient facility, even respite care for family members who need a break taking care of a loved one. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Trygve Olson with the Carperter's House. Locke, Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates has served our community by airing Legal Lines, a community educational program for 18 years weekly to Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas. Watch Legal Lines at LockeMeredith.com or Cox Channel 1004. Hi, I'm Sean Fagan of Locke, Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates. When insurance companies have been unfair, we've never been afraid to go to trial. Fighting hard to protect your rights, we never settle a case out of convenience. We only settle when it's right for you. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have on the show for the first time Trygve Olson. Mr. Olson is a registered nurse, works at St. Joseph's Carperter's House, which is a hospice facility that I've recently had the pleasure of dealing with. It is so wonderful to see you, Trygve.
Nice to see you again.
Appreciate you coming in and kind of educating folks about this, because I had no clue what hospice was really about, the various issues that you deal with, whether or not to use it, other options, all that kind of stuff. And you took care of my mom, who passed away in the last few weeks. And it was an amazing experience because you were there and you knew how to take care of her and you knew how to take care of us, the family. So tell the folks a little bit about yourself. How did you get to this point?
Well, I started my career as a nursing assistant and joined the military, joined the United States Navy. I was a hospital corpsman.
On an aircraft carrier, as I recall.
No.
Oh, I thought it was a carrier.
No, I was mostly at Bethesda Naval Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. And I served my country from 1986 to 1998.
You planned to serve the whole time, right?
I planned to serve the whole 20 years. I was in the Gulf War. I had the privilege of serving my country additionally over in Saudi Arabia during that time. But I did develop some palsy in my right lower leg, and so I ended up being medically retired. And
didn't want it?
I did not. No, it wouldn't have been my choice. So I had to find a new career. I moved here from the Washington, D.C. area in 2000.
Wait a minute. And when you were there, you took care of some pretty big wigs, didn't you? Big wigs.
I did.
Interesting.
Elected officials. And that was a great honor for me as well, to just be able to share my knowledge and to care for those who really need care, no matter what their medical situation might be. And that led me to Louisiana, my first time living in the South. And
welcome to Louisiana.
And as smart as I am, I moved here in July, so it was the perfect time of year for a Yankee to come to Louisiana. And I had the blessing of going to Our Lady of the Lake College, graduated there in 2004.
That's my daughter. She graduated from
She is my,
Our Lady of the Lake.
We share the alma mater now.
Yes.
A proud thing. And I did oncology nursing, and then I've had the privilege and honor for the majority of my career to do hospice care.
How did you get to hospice care? Why did you choose that? Because that, in my head, I don't know how you could pick a more difficult focus for a person like you. How did you get there?
I got there through my first job, which was with Hospice of Baton Rouge, while I was going to college. That was my first exposure to hospice care. Had you asked me prior to, I would have said gerontology or something along those lines. But that really shifted my focus on the importance of end-of-life care and the benefit and the comfort that we could provide to patients and families during a very difficult time.
You described to me that you feel like the patient and the families needed an advocate. And part of that mentality was because it was developed from seeing how the hospital system worked.
That is true.
Even though we need the hospitals and we love them, it's just a different focus.
And as an oncology nurse, we would have patients that would sometimes be switched to comfort measures only. But a hospital's main goal is curative outcomes. And there isn't, to me, enough time to be able to spend with the patient and the family to really be able to get what their needs are, because there's other acute care patients that need to be cared
It's
for.
everywhere.
And it takes away your time to be able to be with them.
And in my circumstance, and I love Baton Rouge General Bluebonnet ICU. They took care of my mom for 2 weeks and did everything they could. But it's a different type of care. I mean, they're focused on the body and keeping the body alive, and which is appropriate. I'm not saying it's inappropriate, but hospice is completely different from that.
Yes.
So explain to people, what is hospice care?
Hospice care is a program that is designed for the comfort and the peace and well-being of a patient. So when all curative outcomes have been decided, then you have to transition to hospice care should there be no other alternative.
And you described it as end-of-life care?
End-of-life care.
Okay.
So federal law dictates that in order to qualify for hospice, you have to have 2 physicians certify that your life expectancy is 6 months or less. And if that is the case, then you qualify for hospice care, and then you would be moved into our program. There are different levels of care for our program, but I specifically focus on inpatient acute care, which is high-level, high-skill need symptom management.
So what are the various levels of care in the hospice system or world?
So under the Medicare hospice benefit, with which private insurance companies and the Medicaid program also follow these as well, there are 4 different levels of care.
All right.
There are routine home care, which is where the majority of your hospice patients go.
Now, can that be someone who's also in end-of-life care versus they just need some intensive care?
That is all, yes, all of that qualifies under the hospice care benefit. And so those are patients that can be managed with oral medications or patches in a home or a home-like setting, nursing home, assisted living facility, group home, or in the patient's home. Then you have respite care.
Now, what kind of care occurs in that circumstance when
That's
they're at
routine
home?
home care.
Okay,
That's considered what we call routine home care.
And do nurses go and help occasionally? Aides go and help occasionally? How does that work?
Yes, it works very much. I like to describe it to patients as it's similar to home health, but it's with a comfort perspective. So nurses
means what? Reduce pain or mental and physical pain? Or?
Any kind of physical comfort needs, which can be pain, anxiety, insomnia, nausea, respiratory. Then we also incorporate spiritual and psychological support through our chaplain and our social worker, not only for the patient, but also for the family. And then the nurse makes visits to the home, the CNA makes visits to the home, and that is a situation
CNA, certified nursing assistant?
Certified. You have to be certified nursing assistant
Okay.
to work in hospice. And then the family provides the bulk of the care, with hospice managing that care, providing the medications, the equipment, the medical supplies.
And checking in?
And checking in.
And making sure everything's going the way it's supposed to. All right, what's the other type of hospice care?
Then there's respite care, which is a 5-day break for the home caregiver. So if they're going out of town, if they have a medical appointment, if they're just worn out, they can then bring their loved one to a facility, our facility, for 5 days.
Which again
so
is the
they
Carpenter's
can get a break,
house.
which is the Carpenter house.
So it's to help the family or the caretaker get a break?
Yes, sir. And then you have inpatient care, which I call the emergency room / intensive care unit for hospice.
Okay. We'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith, Legal Lines. My very special guest, Trygve Olson, with the Carpenter's House associated with St. Jude. We're talking about hospice. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Mitchell Meredith. Injuries happen when you least expect them to, making your life more complicated. At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates, we know this and we strive to help each of our clients during these times. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call at 272-5555.
Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates has won for our clients over $175 million over the decades, but our greatest success is our clients who have chosen and trusted us to help them. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call. You've got nothing to lose.
I'm lawyer Collins Locke Meredith. Trust is important when hiring an injury law firm. At Locke Meredith, Schoenfegen Associates, thousands have trusted us and gotten the results they deserved. Visit us at LockeMeredith.com. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call, 272-5555.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have on the show for the first time Trygve Olson. He's a registered nurse working for Carpenter's House, which is part of the St. Joseph Hospice system. Thank you again, Trig, for coming in.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Let's kind of backtrack real quick, just because we were talking about the levels or types of care that hospice provides. You went through the house type of hospice, which is basically family or caretaker being there with the person in their own home or a loved one's home, coming in and helping. Then you talked about the respite care, which is if the family person, caretaker, is just exhausted, they can bring the patient in for care and they can rest for about 5 days.
Yes.
Tell me about the other types of care.
The other type is continuous home care, which is a higher level of care that can be done at home, but we usually default that to the Carpenter House. So that way it relieves the family of the burden, and we would then be able to provide support for both the patient and the family.
And so in that scenario, it's the family member caretaker who's providing all the medications and all of the stuff that you do?
With continuous home care, it would be a nurse that would be in the home with the family for a designated period of time. Then they would have...
That can't be for a real long time, huh?
I am not sure of I think it's 8 hours of the day. And then they usually have, I believe, a nursing assistant that is there for the remainder of the evening, or an LPN. And so it's just a higher level of care that the patient really needs. But we have found that...
But it's not 24/7?
It's not 24/7.
Got
There's
it.
still a period of time that the staff is not there.
So that leads us to inpatient hospice.
Inpatient hospice, which
is
I
what
often
my
describe-
family experienced.
Absolutely.
Praise God.
I classify that as like the intensive care unit emergency room for hospice care, because we have the ability to provide very high skill level need care for patients that are in a crisis situation, whether that be uncontrolled pain, respiratory distress, agitation, nausea, vomiting. We have the ability to do IV medications. We have the ability to have access to a wide variety of medicines. So therefore there's no wait period. Once the doctor writes the order, we just go into the system, we get it, and we're in the patient's
And there's
room.
an in-house physician with Carpenter's House.
Absolutely. We have
Makes
2
rounds in
medical
the whole bit.
directors and 3 associate medical directors. So we have a physician that makes rounds every day. And when they're not there, we have their cell phone. So we just call them, and we can call them from the bedside, and they'll give us an order. We can walk out, we have access to that medicine, we can retrieve it, bring it right into the room and provide it to the patient.
Okay. Palliative care, I've heard, is different, or we've talked about it a little bit. What is that? How does that differ from?
Is a very important program.
Hospice.
It is like a bridge program for patients that still may need some type of curative treatment for relief of symptoms, whether that be pain management, radiation therapy to shrink a tumor, or something dealing with bone cancer to reduce the size of the mass to reduce pain, where they're not really ready yet for hospice care.
They're not at 6 months.
They're not at 6
longevity.
months.
Okay.
And so therefore they would fit into the palliative program. And there are many, many fine physicians out in our community that practice palliative care and do a wonderful job at that.
That's all done at the patient's home?
That's done on an outpatient basis.
Okay.
With palliative care clinics.
Okay. And so that's kind of their goal, is just to deal with the pain, but it's out, not inpatient. All right, got it. So tell me about the staff, because you've been there for 14 years.
I've been there for 14 years.
And so you actually opened the facility.
I did. I had the privilege and honor of admitting our first patient January 2009.
And you were the head dog.
For a while, yes.
For a while, and it exhausted you until 2021.
2021.
Tell folks why that was kind of the time you said, I'm going to move on out of being in charge here, and I'm going to just provide care to patients here. Because COVID hit.
COVID hit hard. And there was a nursing shortage due to the COVID pandemic. Many nurses left the profession, or those who did work through the pandemic were so exhausted afterwards that they just needed a break. And so the staffing and being able to have access to people and new talent became rather challenging, because all healthcare facilities were looking for,
a lot of competition.
A lot of competition. And so I did the best I could, but I just reached a point where I said, somebody who has a lot more energy than me, after 14 years of being on call 24/7, I was like, I'd like to just get back to focusing on the patients and the families.
If you don't mind, tell the audience kind of what the COVID experience was like, because I know there were, like you said, a lot of nurses just said, I'm out of here. I don't want to, I'm sure there was concerns they would get it and die.
Yes.
You didn't do that, did you?
No, we did not. Our owner, Pat Mitchell, and our founding director of nursing administrator, Carmel Drago, and I had a conversation in March of 2020 about switching over to being a dedicated COVID facility. And it was a phone call that we all took very seriously.
I bet.
And both of them were very gracious. They said, at any time, if you say no, the answer is no. But at that point, patients were dying in hospitals with no physical touch, no connection to family. And we just wanted to be able to provide that to our patients and our families at that time. So we admitted our first COVID patient on Saturday, March 29th. I remember it like it was yesterday. And
what year?
2020. And we did that for 2 months. And then we switched them over to Sage LTAC, one of our sister facilities in Denham Springs. And then we went back to normal hospice care. But we wanted families to have the ability to see their loved one.
And you made it happen for everybody.
We made it happen.
Tell folks about the Carpenter house itself. It's located, one of them. There's 5 locations.
There are 5 locations.
But the one here in Baton Rouge, it's located at Jefferson and Airline.
Yes,
It's extraordinarily
10615
wonderful
Jefferson
facility. Tell folks about the facility, the people, your fellow workers, the staff, the docs, and kind of the environment there.
Well, the environment is one of compassion and caring. My philosophy is a family brings their loved one to a group of strangers. If that doesn't humble you to your core, you can't work there. You just won't work. So we're very blessed with the nurses, the nursing assistants, chaplains, social workers, and physicians who have that same philosophy. And caring is what we do best. We provide the comfort of a hospital, but we provide the compassion and care that God mandates that we provide.
You also provide a wonderful facility that almost feels like a home for folks. They've got a lot of different rooms and options for folks to just get away from it for a minute or two or hours if they want to.
Yes, we have a beautiful, what we call common area in front that has a water feature.
I'll tell you what, Trig, let's pick this up on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines, Trygve Olson, talking about palliative care, hospice, and the Carpenter's house. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Sean Fagan of Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan & Associates. Open the phone book or look online. There are plenty of lawyers to choose from. And if you ask any of them, they'll agree that the vast majority of claims settle without ever having gone to trial. And I'll tell you, any lawyer can settle a claim. It's not hard to settle a claim, but it takes hard work to get a client what he or she deserves. At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan & Associates, we have a proven record of working hard for our clients. Whether you hire us at all, give us a call. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, I'm very pleased to have on the show for the first time Trygve Olson. He's a registered nurse with the Carpenter's House, who is affiliated with St. Joseph's Hospital facilities. They have 5 of them, and we're lucky enough in Baton Rouge to have one, the Carpenter's House at the Jefferson and Airline intersections. Trig, let's kind of dive back in. Tell me about the staff and the facility, the equipment, the whole package, because people may be going, great, I get a nurse, a doc runs around once a day, and some assistants, and I don't think that's sufficient care for my loved one. Tell folks who the team is.
Absolutely. It is 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, around-the-clock care.
So
That is-
there's someone there all the time. There's actually multiple people
There's
there all
multiple
the
people
time.
there all the time. So we always, at minimum, have a registered nurse, a licensed practical nurse, and a certified nursing assistant on the floor. And then we're supplemented by additional nurses as the census permits, as well as we also have social workers and chaplains, we have volunteers, and we have our physicians.
And everybody participates in the care of that individual. I know we had chaplains come in, and we had every one of those expertise that you indicated come in and help.
Each patient is assigned what's called an interdisciplinary team, and that consists of the physician, the nurse, a chaplain, and a social worker.
And so if you're sitting in there, your family, and you're with your loved one and you can see them suffering, what should they do about it? Because you guys are extraordinarily responsive.
Absolutely. One of the things that we really focus on is the care, not only for the patient, but a big part of me is also caring about your patient and their family. And I tell families all the time, if you feel that they're uncomfortable, if you feel that something is changing, we're right here. We're literally outside the door.
And we're literally outside the door.
Literally. We leave doors open if there's no family or staff in the room, so we
But
can
you can
hear
close
the
it
patient.
if you want to.
If the
there.
family's in the room, they can close the door. If there's no family in the room, we leave the door open,
Right.
so we can constantly hear and monitor. But our care team is constantly going around as we go up and down the halls, as we sit there, documenting and collaborating with each other on how to provide the best care for this patient and family. Then we're always present, so there's always someone there with the loved ones and to be of support for the family.
And it's interesting. I earlier described how just my family, at least, was very comfortable there. It was a beautiful setting. It was furnished like a home. You could bring photographs in. I got a big family and a bunch of kids, so we'd close the door and we'd cackle at the top of our lungs, having memories and kind of retelling stories and stuff. It was actually extraordinary. It's like you're in your own home, and people don't care if you're loud and obnoxious.
No, we strove very hard in the planning and in the building of the facility, as well as in the decorating of the facility, to ensure that it did not look like an institution
Right.
or a medical facility. We want families to feel like they are at their second home with their loved one. We want their surroundings to be a home-like setting. Our visiting hours are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And you
We
can
want
call, as a
families-
family, you can call anytime.
Call anytime to get an update on your loved one. We're just there to be a servant for that patient and that family for whatever they may need during that time.
So the folks, give me the size of, is it 18 beds? I'm trying to recall the number.
We are a 16-bed facility.
16-bed facility.
Yes.
And so there are occasions, now there are other hospice providers in the Baton Rouge area, but you have 16 beds, and there are occasions where all the beds are full, but they don't stay full for very long. Am I right? So there's availability that comes up over short periods of time, and so you could start the house care program, hospice at home, I guess, or whatever it was called, and transition to you guys at the Carpenter's house. Is that right?
That is, at any point
Explain
in
how that
time-
works.
Oh, yes. So if we're full, we would create a waiting list. And then as soon as a bed became available, we would let the hospital know, we'd let the family know, whichever it may be. But one of the most important things about this is our home care staff. The main purpose of an inpatient facility is to be of support for patients that are in hospice care. So if you're at home and you get into a crisis situation and you need immediate medical attention or intervention, instead of that family having to be discharged and go to the emergency room, they can bring their loved one to the Carpenter house.
Big difference.
Absolute big difference. We can do what we need to do. You may be out of there. We may get you stabilized and on a new regimen, and you can be back home the next day. It all depends on what needs to be done. But yes, we function as both the emergency room for home care hospice patients as well as an inpatient facility.
Tell the folks about the equipment that's available, because y'all deal with, folks coding or all kinds of issues.
Well,
heart attacks and such, right?
we are a do not resuscitate facility
Okay.
Because we're end-of-life care. And so our facility does not have any
So how
equipment.
is that defined?
End-of-life care, again, is a prognosis from a disease process that, should it take its natural course, 6 months or less. So we know that that disease that has no curative outcome is going to cause the body's symptoms to stop functioning.
Okay.
Therefore, the resuscitation then becomes an issue of the disease process causing it versus it just being a cardiac issue.
Got it. So if they're in there because they have cancer and they have a heart attack, you might treat the heart attack unless the family says don't do that.
Well, we don't have any equipment to provide
Okay, got it.
resuscitation because that cancer will then eventually cause the heart to stop.
See, I don't know
And
the
bringing
process.
the heart
Okay.
back, with the cancer would just do it again.
Okay, I understand. All right. Again, most all private insurances, Medicare, Medicaid, pay 100% of these fees.
Yes. My company that we work for is very, very good. Medicare benefit covers 100%, as well as Medicaid. Then you have private insurances. And there are some insurances that may have 80-20.
Okay.
But I have yet to know in 14 years of any family getting a bill for the 20%.
Wow, that's wonderful news. Also, finally, when the end does come, and that's painful, and everybody processes that in their own way, y'all have already in advance communicated with the funeral home chosen by the family to deal with that whole scenario.
Yes.
Explain how that happens.
When God calls someone home, we then have a process that we follow. We contact the coroner of the parish that patient resided in, and they provide us with what's called a release, where they release the custody back to us. And then that allows us then to turn over the care to the funeral home that the family has
All right.
selected.
And explain to folks how they can help. Donations?
Donations to St.
volunteers?
Joseph Hospice Foundation. We also welcome all volunteers. You can contact Susan Hill at St. Joseph Hospice, Baton Rouge, for direct care, volunteering, or just administrative volunteering. We'll take any volunteer we can get. They're such a vital source to what we do.
And again, donations to?
St. Joseph Hospice Foundation.
Fantastic. Trygve, it's been wonderful to talk to you again, see you again,
Distinct
brother.
pleasure.
This is Locke Meredith, Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, Trygve Olson with Carpenter's House, St. Joseph Hospice. Thank you for being with us.